Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, in today's video, we are going to be talking about how it is that the threats of tariffs are now being dissipated, being alleviated, backing off, chickening out, however you want to describe it. The credible threats of tariffs are really just that, a credible threat. And yes, there will be tariffs, and I'm sure there are tariffs, and there's probably going to be tariffs going into the future. But when it comes to the tariffs coming from China, right now we have a backing off on all the electronics, which is going to be a huge portion of the consumer products, the consumer items coming from China. And I find this to be quite interesting to be taking place, as I have been calling out and predicting through the credible threat theory that this is a way of actually creating an environment that benefits the monetary policy. And seeing this news coming out today just confirms it even more that the credible threat theory is by far the most accurate theory that has taken place right now. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this article. I accidentally closed it, so I got to bring it back up here. Give me just one moment. But I'm going to read a little bit more from this article coming out of CNBC. And what's the headline? The headline is Trump exempts phones, computers. Oops. Come on now, computer, work with me. Here we go. Trump exempts phones, computers, chips from new tariffs. Smartphones and computers will be exempted from Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Trump earlier this month imposed 145% tariff on products from China, and a move that poised to take toll on tech companies like Apple, which makes most of its products in China. Excuse me. The guidance also includes exclusion of other electronic devices and components, including semiconductors, solar cells, flat panel TVs, displays, flash drives, memory cards, solid state drives used for storing data. And I imagine the list probably just goes on. And now, when we talk about this, when we think about what it is that's happening right now, it really is becoming more apparent to me that we are trying to create an elevated inflation expectation. And I know a lot of times when I say that, I think people think of it as elevated inflation. And these are two different things. It's really important to understand, because elevated inflation expectation, although would over time be a self-fulfilling prophecy, as the behaviors and actions of people will then perform the outcome of elevating inflation, it's the inflation expectation and future inflation expectation that they are trying to keep anchored or trying to elevate at particular times. And when you have a tariff threat and the promise of tariff threats and 145% and all these companies, all these people talking about how it's going to impact them. Like, I was even just reading articles about like how much it would cost to make a bunch of these electronics here in the United States. And all that is just now gone, right? Evaporated, no longer a worry. It just disappears. And it's funny how this always seems to be happening over the weekend, right? They don't do it during the day when, there's going to be a bunch of news and impact to the market. So this is, again, like, if it was a real threat, this is the thing that I found, right? I mean, because I don't take well to threats or bullies or anything like that. Like, I just don't, right? And so I don't get scared, and I'm not feeling threatened by anything, because really, if it was to be a real honest threat, just do it, right? Just hit the people with it. And it was just like, oh, by the way, everything that's on the water right now is getting it, and there is no backing off. See ya, right? And then you shut up about it and then let the tariffs do their job. But instead, what we have is threats and people reacting to these threats of tariffs, only to find out that the threats of tariffs are no longer a threat. And then people have to then change the entire belief system on what it is that they have done, especially if they went and raised prices in response to a credible threat of a tariff that didn't actually happen. Okay? People were actually doing things all the way down the supply chain, reacting to a credible threat of a tariff that didn't take place. Okay? I mean, if it isn't for the credible threat theory that called this out, saying they are like, what tariffs? I've been saying it the whole time. We got to wait and see what tariffs are going to be shown. Day 1, 30 days, Liberation Day on the 9th, in 90 days, flexibility, negotiations, maybe some extensions, exemptions, workarounds. How, right? Like, who is calling this out the way it's going down right now? And it's really not me saying, oh, I have this really great idea on what it is that's going on within the economy. It's almost literally talked about within the monetary policy itself. I mean, they don't say it word like they're going to create an inflationary scenario by the tariff threat of Trump and the trade war. No, that's not what they said. What they said is that we need an elevated inflation expectation, and it's a problem that they desperately need to solve. Look at this, they're getting it. And here we got Trump, backing off on this thing. And I think to myself, man, if you back off on much more of these things, nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe that you're actually going to implement these things in any kind of reasonable fashion, because everything that is happening right now seems to be a complete reversal of what it is that he was threatening to do on day 1. And I'm not trying to badmouth Trump and his policies. What I am trying to do is highlight the credible threat theory, and that they are using their words to create an inflationary expectation that is elevated, and look how well it's working. And when people internalize it in a fashion that says, no, that it has a deeper meaning to this, there is so much more at play. There is so much that's going to impact our lives and destroy our lives and everything else. That's giving it power. That is literally giving this power pendulum power, right? It's like understanding that they are putting you on a path of an elevated inflation expectation for their own benefit to save their monetary policy. Look at China right now suffering through deflationary nightmares. And if they were to try and do anything, it would to try and create an inflation expectation that is elevated going into the future, since they are suffering through a deflationary spiral. This is it. This is how it's going down. I mean, I've gone over these speeches so many times in the past, but it is obvious the credible threat theory, when you go back all the way to Ben Bernanke's speech talking about the gold machine, that speech, see, people say, man, I wish I had these speeches. It's right here, deflation, making sure it doesn't happen here. All right? That's the title of the speech, November 21st, 2002, Ben Bernanke. November 21st, 2002. You know what's funny is a lot of these speeches come out in November. It's weird. Okay. You go and read that speech, you're going to find in there that they were suffering through the idea that they were going to run out of monetary policy. They hadn't yet. They were on their way. They were well on their way to the ending of monetary policy. They didn't know what they were going to do about it. It was a scary moment for them. They said, that's okay. Even if we do hit the lower bound of zero and we can't adjust the interest rates any further down, we still have a way. We still have a way, and we can do it with the gold machine. And the gold machine is the idea of using their words and using their words to push out a belief into the system of the market's behaviors, like literally the individual decision makers of like a household, of an individual, like an 18-year-old trying to do his thing. They knew that they had to communicate all the way down to all these different levels, and it's working. Like, you think about the credible threats of a tariff. Most people have no idea what tariffs are or how they work or what they would do. But when it's blasted all over the news, they know exactly how it's going to work. In fact, they know exactly how much it's going to work, that they actually incorporated it into the decision process of what it was that they were doing at work for their business, and increased the prices that they were going to charge in an effort to preemptively act upon these tariffs, these credible threats of tariffs that never took place, that aren't taking place. I mean, I was reading articles about how they were doing this with lumber companies. Like, lumber companies talking about how, this 25% tariff, it's going to be pretty bad. We're going to have to increase our prices due to the fact that we have most of these products coming from Canada, and we're just, we're preemptively getting ready for all of this stuff. And they raised their prices, and then it didn't happen. Now what? You got to lower your prices? You're going to keep them the same, yeah, bro? What are you going to do? See, like my lumber yard's in competition with a bunch of other lumber yards around. I don't have a position in which that I can do that. A lot of you know that I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living. And if I was to try and raise my price on a credible threat of tariff, try to gouge the customer a little bit with this, fear, uncertainty, and doubt of what it was that was coming, they would have all went right down to my competition because we're all trying to get our prices as low as we can and still be profitable to attract the customer because we're in competition. Right? But if somebody says, "Oh man, I don't have that kind of competition. I'm in a position in which that I can gouge the customer, I can raise rates, and it's due to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of the credible threat of a tariff that never occurred." How do you deal with that? Like, you have to then go to your customers and apologize, or you just leave the prices the way they were and say, "No, that's just it, man." All right? See how they create the inflationary scenario? Not everybody did it. Like, you see lumber prices crashing right now. They're coming down. And there's a 34% duty on Canadian lumber that nobody knows about right now. Right? There's a little bit of news about it, but it's not being pushed out there to say this is going to cost $10,000 increase to the price of a house. Right? No, like $10,000 to a cost of increasing the cost of a house. No, not even. Let's read some of your comments here. I just had to come out and share this article with you guys because it's just more evidence of what it is that's happening out here. In if you view it through, like I said, through this credible threat theory, you will totally see it. It's just like it's obvious. This is what they're doing, and all these people are like, well, what about this and what about that? And I think to myself, well, those are all symptoms. Like most of the time, most people see is really logical. It's most of the time it makes a lot of sense, and it's good valid points and stuff. But ultimately, it's secondary to the economic forces that are underlying, and what they are really recognizing is the symptoms. You know, it's like saying somebody like it's literally like saying, I know why he's not going to work. It's because he feels like crap. He just lays there on the floor and he feels like crap. And that's why he doesn't go to work. And I was just like, well, yeah, that's obvious. That's the obvious one, right? And people can say, no, he's puking. Look how he's puking and he's really sick and it's all messed up. And it would be like, yeah, I know. He's not going to work because he's not feeling well. I get it, right? This is obvious. These are all the symptoms of it. But what happened is that he drank a fifth of tequila, right? Like you can talk about all the symptoms, you can talk about the problems, you can talk about the reasons he's not at work, but ultimately what it came down to was one thing. All right, what's this super chat say? It says, oh my gosh, these glasses are horrible. Okay, it says Ghost Force $1.99. It might as well be UE's law at this point. Well, it's certainly getting that way, but I don't want it to be like UE's law. I want it to be something that people are going to actually remember. Credible threat theory, I think, is an actual great name for it. It describes it perfectly. It's although it's somewhat ominous sounding, it is, very descriptive of what it is that is taking place within the monetary policy. And once you start breaking it down and hearing it, then you start recognizing it for what it is when you're looking out there at the mainstream media and looking out there at the some of the things that other economists are talking about or other YouTube channels, and you can see them falling in to the narrative. And then when you think about how that narrative impresses the people out there, and then you look at how that is being used, right? It's just like, it's almost like, like stepping back in these different layers of view so that you're actually taking a much different, distant view. See, some people can get focused right in on it and say, no, dude, if you looked at this thing about what's going on over in Ukraine and all this deep, detailed information and data, I was just like, yeah, that's huge. But really, a war is really the outcome of an underlying economic force that has taken place, and it usually has something to do with control of the power of commodities of some sort or whatever. There's all kinds of descriptions of it, but if you really want to get down to the primitive basis of it, is really thinking about it from the way that Cantillon describes it. And although it's, barbaric way of saying it in like, really out of date terms. He uses the term savages of the Americas, and how they had to fight these bloody battles over hunting grounds. That's like really the heart of economics, right? There's not enough of us here and we all need to eat, and the land only produces so much food. So guess what, right? We're going to fight over it. And this is what ends up happening. But really, you got to think about it. It's an underlying economic force that is happening because we all get to eat. Eat, survival, food, shelter, stuff like that is like, the basis of economics. But, understanding the underlying forces and then understanding the credible threat theory that's being pushed out there when it comes to how it is that they communicate, this is the most critical part of it. Like, understanding the communication style of the Federal Reserve is very difficult because most people have a hard time even knowing who the Federal Reserve is. Like, just to even say, like, hey, can you name one member of the FOMC outside of Jerome Powell? Like, I bet you could go to 99% of America and they would have no idea about anybody else on the FOMC outside of Jerome Powell, if they even knew what the FOMC was to begin with, right? So this like information is so like, how do I put it? Like, unaware of, like, nobody knows it. It is hidden in plain sight, but it's not even hidden in plain sight. People don't even know it exists. I think that's probably a better way of looking at it, is that people don't even know that this information is even available to even understand and internalize. Since the idea of understanding economics comes from academia, where you're probably learning from a classroom and a professor and a particular process on how it is that, like, maybe the Federal Reserve operates, or how like finance works and banking works and all this other stuff, these type of things are not taught at all. Like, these are strategies of the central bankers that are communicated to the other central bankers, and these strategies are not communicated to the public at all. Like, this is, I don't even know how to put it other than like I don't know. I mean, it's funny because you do see pieces of it in the public, but you don't see the whole thing. You don't see it in one clear shot. And so, that's why I keep kind of coming out here and trying to show it to you, that they use these things. Jefferson is probably one of the best ones. He has a speech out here as far as talking about the communicating about monetary policy. That's the name of the speech. It was given May 13th of 2024, Philip Jefferson. And in this speech, he really breaks down how it is that they are using their communications to guide monetary policy. In fact, it talks all about monetary policy and not one communication really about interest rate adjustments. See, this is how I know that they're using their words, because this is a communication about monetary policy, and literally they talk about the interest rate adjustments, but not the interest rate adjustments being the tool. They talk about the communication and how it is a tool communicating about those interest rate adjustments. And it's really, I mean, it's good stuff like in there. Because prior to the Fed hitting the lower bound of zero, they never talked about their interest rate adjustments. Like, they were very, very quiet about it. And so the only time you ever heard the Federal Reserve speak is usually after the interest rate adjustment had taken place. And then when they did communicate, nobody understood what they were saying. And that was done on purpose. And here you can see it. It says, in 1981, Carl Brunner, let me grab my glasses here. Actually, hold on. These ones are better glasses. Yeah. In 1981, Carl Brunner, the Swiss monetary economist, called central banking an esoteric art and lamented central banks' inherent impossibility to articulate its insight in explicit and intelligible words and sentences. At the time, central banking wisdom dictated that monetary policy should say as little as possible. Some research of that vintage tried to rationalize this secrecy through the notion that monetary policy would be particularly effective if it surprised the markets. And so to understand that this is how they were doing it, and they still use surprising the markets in many ways. I mean, you think about it, like what do you think the market's going to do on Monday morning when they start digesting over the weekend all this relief of tariff pressure on all these electronics that are coming out of China, right? When they surprise the market, it's quite effective. However, when they hit the lower bound of zero, by the time they got there, they realized that they were going to be using their words and that they were able to actually use their words to get more power out of their monetary policy. So before they would hit the economy with an interest rate adjustment that was like a shock and awe event, but then they realized that they communicated about it a little bit, that they could actually get more power out of it. So now let's think about that in this way, right? Expectations became a focal point in academic and policy circles with the emergence of the new Keynesian models in 1990 as a framework for monetary policy. In these models, aligning the expectations of decision makers in the private sector with those of the policymakers produced superior economic outcomes. Mike Woodford, one of the developers of the new Keynesian model, put it this way: not only do expectations about policy matter, but very little else matters. You see that? See, they need your expectations lined up with what it is that they need. Very little else matters. In fact, it doesn't, nothing else matters. Yeah. And see, and again, the whole reason why they were doing this is because they had essentially run out of monetary policy. And what I mean by that is that they had no more room, no more further downward adjustments in Fed funds rate. So meaning like when they have a Fed funds rate is the overnight lending rate between the big banks. So when the big, like, it's kind of complicated to break it down in such short moments, but to understand that there's an overnight lending that happens between the big banks, if they can adjust that, all rates after that are essentially riskier loans going to you, me, businesses, wherever it goes. So if they can adjust the overnight lending rate, then all rates after that will essentially follow whatever rate that overnight lending rate does. It gets more complicated than that, especially since 2019 and they have the repo facility and all this other stuff, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. Just to understand that when they adjust the Fed funds rates, that's the rate that they're attempting to adjust, is that overnight lending rate. Okay. Okay, it says, of course, this is an extraordinary time for monetary policy, and now they're talking about the great financial crisis here, as interest rates in most advanced economies were close to zero following the global financial crisis. The FOMC, so when they use forward guidance, job owning, there's some other words that they use now. Signaling is a funny one that they use. Anytime that the Federal Reserve comes out and says, hey, we are going to be adjusting interest rates, not like possibly data dependent. No, if we are going to be adjusting interest rates at the next meeting, most of the time they leave it open ended by saying we just don't know by how much, right? So they'll say, hey, we're going to have an interest rate adjustment going into the future. That's forward guidance. That's signaling. That's job owning. That's like giving the guidance to the market to behave in a way that is in a line with what it is that they are wanting for their monetary policy. And generally when they are deploying forward guidance and they say that they are doing forward guidance, they do come through with the motion in which that they are talking about. So if they say, hey, at the next meeting we are going to cut, generally they'll leave it open-ended by saying we just don't know by how much, right? They will go through with that one. Other times they will say we are data dependent to know what we are going to do at the next interest rate adjustment meeting. Like the next time they come out with one, they may not adjust rates because they are data dependent. That's not them deploying forward guidance, but it doesn't. So they will use the term forward guidance. Okay. So forward guidance is a credible threat, but not always is forward guidance deployment, meaning that credible threats aren't being deployed. Does that kind of make sense? So like credible threats is always there, but sometimes the Federal Reserve will actually come out and say, hey, we are using forward guidance, right? So there's two different things that are happening. There's like the ever always present credible threat of their words, And then there's the times that they say, hey, listen to our words. We are telling you we are going to do an interest rate adjustment going into the future. So there's a huge difference inside of it, but they're somewhat similar in nature, right? Kind of makes sense? Does that all make sense? I don't think I ever really clearly kind of communicated that, because there is that monetary policy of forward guidance. She just says it right there. Right? So let me read this paragraph again. It says, of course, this is an extraordinary time for monetary policy, as interest rates in most advanced economies were close to zero following the global financial crisis. The FOMC employed forward guidance, explicit communication about the future path of the policy rate, as a key tool to deal with the unprecedented situation. And so now you have to think about that. She just admitted that it was a key tool. Right? You know, if you're a carpenter out there and you're like, man, what are your key tools? And it was just like, well, I can tell you one of them is this hammer, right? Like a key tool, right? So when she talks about this being a key tool, it was one that they had to deploy. It wasn't one that they had typically used, because we just learned that earlier, that the central bankers were typically very quiet about their monetary policy. But now here, forward guidance has become a key tool. Goes on to say, this research had found that such forward guidance could be very effective in the context of the new Keynesian paradigm. When Loretta became president, they're talking about Loretta Mester. When Loretta became president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland in 2004, she supported the continued use of forward guidance during these extraordinary times. In particular, to communicate a lower for longer policy that could provide accommodation in the presence of the effective lower bound. So this is what the forward guidance was doing, was saying, hey, we're going to be lower for longer, and this was going to essentially be the inflationary pressure that they were hoping for during this time of unprecedented low or lower bound, in the presence of this, lower bound. She also insisted that forward guidance can be used effectively even in normal times as a mean of clarifying the FOMC's reaction function. So this is important to understand, is that the Federal Reserve knows that they could be using this in normal times, right? All right, let's go and read some of these super chats here. Luke Patterson with the $5. Thank you so much. He is brave, Sir Donald, and he bravely ran away. And it's the thing. It's just like, okay, so I don't want to accuse him of being cowardly or anything else, because really, honestly, the strategy in which that was deployed in order to save the monetary policy was absolutely brilliant. You think about it, we here on this channel, we get it. The people who make fun of me on this channel, who actually have internalized the information, they're the lucky ones. Right? Because they actually just stumbled across this channel and didn't look for it. You guys were looking for it. That's why you're here. And this is the reason why you understand what is happening right now, especially with them backing off on the threats of tariffs, when so many people are saying, oh, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that it's happening. And I'm like, are you nuts? Like, I had a guy tell me that he wanted to see the stock market crash so that Donald Trump would be hurt. And I'm thinking, dude, you're an 80-year-old man who relies on the stock market doing well, and you want it to crash so that Donald Trump gets hurt? What is kind of delusional thinking that are people having out here? Right? But then I go and I think, well, it certainly does raise the credible threat, or raise the idea of inflation expectations, and does all the stuff that they are needing from the credible threat theory. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's working swimmingly. It just works, And then once you get it, you get it. I wish more people would grasp into it. I really do. But that's okay, because, we're having a great time here understanding it and seeing it. And then when we read articles like the one I linked down in the description of this video, we just roll our eyes and say, yeah, we knew it. Like, almost like, hey, I told you so. But it's not like I told you so. I didn't know it was going to go down like this. I just knew that, they're looking for elevated inflation expectation. That's it. Like, I just backed off and said, okay, nobody knows what the hell is going on, but there was one thing I do know. F. Carol Baskin. No, I'm just kidding. There's one thing I do know, and that they want an elevated inflation expectation. And that was it. That was the only thing that I was really, like, absolutely sure of. And then I just thought, okay, how are you going to do it? Well, you got to convince the people. You got to convince them that there's going to be tariffs. Like, as soon as I thought, okay, tariffs on day one, I'm like, on day one, you're going to do tariffs on day one. Are you sure? right? And then it wasn't day one. I was like, yeah, I didn't think so, right? And it was like in 30 days. In 30 days, you line this up in 30 days, man. You got everybody lined up to do this in 30 days. Okay, it wasn't 30 days. That's right. I didn't think it was. Right? Liberation Day, right? And then it was like, all these it kept backing up, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's what I thought. You're creating an inflation expectation that is elevated. Great job. You're doing it. And it's working, right? It totally worked. I mean, you see it. People were making price changes on the almost all, like, essentially through the supply chain, almost all the way down to the retail end. It didn't show up in the CPI, but like literally, there's people who were emailing me, telling me, and the chats, all kinds of places that they were adjusting prices to deal with the preliminary price adjustments to deal with tariffs. And I'm like, what happens if they don't go through? And they were so positive they were going through because it was going to happen on day one. I mean, in 30 days. I mean, on Liberation Day. I mean, on the 9th, in 90 days. I mean, after they do some negotiations and flexibilities, right? I mean, you can't, I mean, it's just like, well, whatever. We'll see it when it happens, That's what I'm saying. They should have just done it on day one. And then not tell anybody. It was like, what the hell is this extra what's this extra bill down here at the bottom? It was like, oh, that'd be Trump's tariff that he didn't tell you about. Guess what? You got tariffed, right? It's a good thing. It's a really good thing that we have the tariffs, right? It's just like, that's the way, if you were going to try and threaten me, that's the way it would have to be. It would be like, crap, right? Now I feel threatened because it's actually taking place. But if somebody says, oh, I'm going to do this to you, I'll be like, okay, that's a good one. I get it. It's because I used to run with the guy. I think this is what it is. It's like, I used to run with a real bully. And he tried to bully me a few times and stuff like that. And, sometimes, we would get along, sometimes we wouldn't. And it just kind of got to a point where I just had to keep him at an arm's distance. But watching him interact with other people, I was just like, what in the world? Like, you actually do some really, really outlandish stuff. I remember one time he was mouthing off on Facebook. Like, this is just a mild thing that he had done, but I thought it was really funny when I saw him do it. But he was mouthing off on Facebook with somebody, and man, or these group of people, and they were just all lighting up on some local group. And I just remember, like, in the comment section, somebody was like saying something about tracking his IP address and figuring out where he lived, and they're going to, find him, and they're going to track him down, and, they're going to deal with this dude properly. And he literally posted a picture of his driver's license. Like, he was just like, oh, really? You're trying to track me down? Bink. And he sent him a picture of the driver's license. He was like, I'm here for whenever you're ready. And then he went to bed, right? Because he was like a real bully. Like, he doesn't get pushed around. They were saying that the cops were after him. The guys were like texting him. And I was like, we already called the cops. Sir, got a warrant for you. And he was like, oh, really? So he drove up to the county sheriff's department. He says, hey, I hear you guys are looking for me. And they were like, no, Ryan, we're not looking for you, bro. And it was just like, okay. And then he went home. Like, that's the type of behavior he did. He wasn't pushed around. He wasn't bullied. And so, I mean, I looked at some of those things, and I mean, he didn't get along very well with anybody, and eventually had to move away. And, I mean, I look back on those days, and there was some stuff, and I was just like, man, why'd you do that? Why'd you go and do all those things? And then at other times, I'm thinking, man, I'm really proud to have known you. I really am. It's just like some of the things that I've seen you do and some of the things that you taught me is just like I learned a lot. How to and how not to. In a lot of ways. All right, moving on. Oh, man. These glasses are terrible. I hate them. Oh, I gotta lean way forward to read these things. Okay. The like button is not accurate. Can someone tell how many likes we have? Thank you. I see 135 likes. With 425 people watching, we should have at least 250 likes. So everybody go hit that like button right now. By hitting that like button, the YouTube algorithm will pick up the video, spread it around for more people to join in. Foreign policy, horrific. Domestic reform, cautiously hopeful. I mean, I don't think about like any kind of policy being useful, hopeful, or beneficial to me because I just don't think that the government is really on my side in any way, shape, or form. And so when I relieve them of that expectation to provide me with a better way of life, then I just try to vote for the best person that I possibly can. I don't think too much about it because I just don't think that those people are really having my best interest in mind. When I go out there and try to conduct myself, I try to conduct myself in the best fashion that I can that is most appropriate for me and my family, and I try not to hurt anybody mentally, physically, or financially. And I think that if everybody kind of took that simple attitude towards life, then it would be a whole lot easier out there to try and deal with a lot of things that we are facing. However, greed, manipulation, and righteousness of people believing that other people should behave in particular fashions or whatever will always be present, and there's no way that we're going to work around it. And we can sit here and debate and try and figure out what it is that we need to do to fix the system, or you can just learn to deal with it. And that's really what this channel is all about. It's just learning how to deal with it. Not only deal with that, but then learn to deal with things in your life that's real, might even be a little bit more personal. I mean, all the time, there's people who tell me, dude, you need to start a second channel to just literally talk about the alcohol and alcohol addiction. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not my place. Like, I will tell my story to anybody who wants to hear it, and I will tell it over and over again, and I am happy to do that because I know that telling the stories and going to the rooms and talking about it is the only way that you recover. It's no other way. You can go cold turkey and sit there with a bunch of mad powered energy up inside of you, or you can go and actually do it for real, and that's generally going to have to go and speak with people. So when I tell my story and I hear other people coming to me and saying, dude, thank you for doing that, I'm thinking, no problem, man. It was one part of this channel that I was not expecting to have, and I'm going to keep it going just the same way that I do. I like talking monetary policy because really I think that's something that everybody can use. I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you got $300 million. My information is useful, helpful, and can be internalized in a way that can make your life better. And I know it can because that's exactly what's happening to my life. And I like sharing it with people. All right. I mean, if my life wasn't getting any better, then I wouldn't be like, I couldn't come out and be like, dude, I mean, yeah, listen to me, man. I'm sitting on the streets with nothing. And people look at me and they say, like, dude, I don't know, guy sitting in a truck doesn't look like he has anything, might even be homeless himself. And I'm thinking, you have no idea where I came from, man. Right? You have no idea just 8 years ago what a mess of a situation that I was in. And today I find myself pretty close to being out of debt, except for the mortgage on the house. I got, paying my bills on time. I'm able to fly all over the country and do speaking engagements and do all kinds of stuff that I never thought I would be able to do. And I know it's just from the way I was thinking. Right? Change the way you're thinking, change the way that you view stuff, change your expectations, right? Change the meaning that you get things, and man, all of a sudden life changes for you in a much better way. And I know a lot of it has to do with just simple, like, abandoning the idea of a new world order takeover, because that part is very real. And it's also going to it will deteriorate your life for sure. Like, I have never met anybody who was very deep into the conspiracy theory mindset, except for people who might have been able to share that information on the internet and make some money off of, like, YouTube ad revenue or something of that nature. But most people who have internalized that information and then go to work are usually frustrated, depressed, and do not have much going on in their life. And it's because they feel that everything that is holding them down is because of particular issues that are happening out there, and then they go and find and recognize those issues. And when you start doing that, then you're going to prove to yourself why it is that your life sucks. And then your ego takes over and says, aha, see, we proved it. Yeah. So it's like abandoning the idea of the new world order is one of the toughest things for a lot of people to do. And I know it was one of the hardest things for me to do. I mean, I was like huge into that stuff for a long time, like a very long time. And then when I realized, man, I got to turn it all off. Like, I literally turned it all off. I put cell phone down. I didn't use my debit card for anything. Like, I had one. I had a bank account, but really I just carry cash for everything I did. And, I did that for a long time. And I had no plans on ever really moving back into anything other than living that sort of condition of life. I have a little hobby farm and stuff like that. That was it. That was going to be my existence. I had a lot of debt, a lot of medical debt, and I was drinking a lot, and so it was just a depressive life, right? And then, really, you know what it was? It was like the trigger, the flipping moment was Edward Snowden coming out and basically proving that they're tracking our cell phones. Once everybody became very aware of it, I was like, yes, haha, told you guys. And then it was like, well, now my protest is over. Like, I was really just not carrying the cell phone because of that. I was just like, I just kept trying to tell people they're tracking you, and they wouldn't believe me, and so I just quit carrying it. I was just like, fine, I'm just not going to carry mine out of protest for it. And then when they came out and everybody knew it, I'm like, oh, well, now my protest is over, and so I don't need to protest anymore. And so I got a cell phone. I was really excited about it, and I thought, okay, when I do this, if I go back into carrying this thing, follow the money and nothing else, because nothing else matters. So that's what I did. It was right around, shortly after that, I had also quit drinking. So it was just like that was another turning point in my life. And so when I started, like, doing the research again, I would only study monetary policy and I wouldn't study anything else. It was just like all the rest of it to me was, secondary to the monetary policy and how it is that I need to make decisions for myself. Because what I'm learning there is actually making a difference in my life. So that's like, my story in a nutshell. But, as far as, what it is that I'm doing and why I'm here. But I came to learn. That was it. I don't have anything to sell. Like, I sell some hoodies on Teespring. There's a link down in the description. There's an Amazon affiliate link. I do consultation calls. Yeah, like people actually call me for consultation. And so I, share with them, like, in detail what it is that they need to understand in order to have that aha moment within the credible threat theory. Sometimes, we'll break down the entire information and, I'll send them a few, PDFs or something like that, so that they can get a better understanding of it. And sometimes people just want to talk, but I've had a few consultation calls lately, and I think that that's pretty interesting to do those. Anyway, where is live chats? There we go. All Nighter says, no, we chatted and neither one of us ski those slopes. Oh, you guys are talking. Benny says, are you... Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to say those words. All right. Will I protest? I'm only protesting Democrats. Well, see, here, Trash Can, Trash Can, I find it kind of a lot on your comments, and I'm not trying to give you any kind of, like, advice in any kind of fashion or whatever, but just something that I've just kind of noticed on side of it is that blaming a particular group or even focusing any kind of attention on it is giving it power that it doesn't really deserve or need, right? And understanding that when you focus in and give it power and such natures, you're actually drawing away from the power that it is that you could be using for yourself. I know this is difficult to wrap your head around, because it was, I mean, maybe not for you, maybe it's not hard for you to wrap your head around. It was hard for me to wrap my head around. That's what I should say, right? And when I was thinking about this, but the more that I would look at something that angered me or something that I disapproved of and something that I thought, okay, this is not the way that it should be, the more I realized that every time I would think of it, I was literally sending it energetic power that would then make it grow and give that. And I know, again, like, that's kind of hippie stuff, but just believe me, get a group of people together and start throwing some hatred towards something or some kind of disgust or aggression, and then watch the backlash of it come double fold. You see it at protests all the time. Understand that. That's why I don't fight the Fed. Like this idea of fighting the Fed, we got to sue the Fed and screw the Fed and ball the Fed. And I'm thinking, that ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. It's going to give them more power. You do that. Don't do that. You're going to give them more power. And then they all do it. And I'm like, told you so. Now they got all this damn power. I was just like, you shouldn't have done that. What you should have done is follow the uneducated economists, understand their monetary policy for what it is, because if people really truly understood the credible threat theory the way that I've been trying to explain it, they wouldn't have the power to begin with. It would all be over. Like, this hoodie right now, I don't know if you guys can see it. It says "in the Fed" on the back of it, guys. Like, I am not a fan of the Fed. But then again, I don't really think that there's any way of destroying the Federal Reserve or ending the Federal Reserve. So it's better to understand what it is that they are doing so we can position ourselves accordingly for it. This is the reality of the situation, guys. I mean, it's just it. There's no changing it. I wish there was. Like, I would love it for it to be exactly in line for the way that I'm conducting myself so that I have the perfect outcome. I wish it was that way. I do. I really do. But it's not going to be. So, I mean, I'm just going to accept it. All right. Cruising on down to the bottom. Do you think inflation is going to spiral out of control in the future? What are the chances of that the Republicans will get rid of inflation? Okay, Tom, I first of all, I don't think that the Republicans or Democrats have anything to do with the inflationary scenario that we are experiencing in the fashion that you are thinking. Okay. And so getting rid of inflation is not something that they are intending to do. If that was the case, then they wouldn't be doing the tariff crap, right? We have the CPI coming down, which is the Consumer Price Index, which is essentially one of the inflationary gauges that is used. Now, those numbers are fraudulent to be had. They cannot be trusted. It's not something that I would even believe in trusting. Those CPI numbers are just complete imagination and just a number that they blast across the screen. However, the direction in which that it is going is down, and I do believe that would be the case because this is something that I believe that they are trying to reverse by elevating the inflation expectation, eventually try to reverse the CPI or at least keep it steady because they want to have inflation moderately above 2% for some time, right? And so now understanding that they are not trying to bring inflation down, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, not anybody within the political Congress or Senate or anything else like that, because those people aren't involved in monetary policy. They don't have anything to do with it. They are not part of the Federal Reserve or the FOMC, which is the Federal Open Market Committee with 12 voting members and Powell being just one of those people. And since none of those people in Congress or the Senate or the president have anything to do with the voting members of the FOMC, I don't believe that those people are trying to get inflation down. I think that the FOMC is looking to voice words along with the conjunction of the fiscal policies that are happening out there, which is the government, creating an inflationary expectation that is elevated. The Federal Reserve is looking for moderately above 2% for some time. How that is defined, it's not, right? And I tried to share that again with Powell's speech given August 20, what is it? Where is old Powell's speech here? Oh, that's a late one, guys. Here we go. All right, this is August 27th of 2020. And he says in this speech, in seeking to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time, we are not tying ourselves to a particular mathematical formula that defines the average. Thus, our approach could be viewed as a flexible form of average inflation targeting, otherwise known as FAIT, F-A-I-T, right? And then even more specifically, Michelle Bowman refers to it as asymmetric flexible average inflation targeting. All right, so she actually adds an A in front of it, asymmetrical. All right. Our decisions about appropriate monetary policy will continue to reflect a broad array of considerations and will not be dictated by any formula. All right? There is no formula for average inflation rate over time. They don't have a set place for moderately above 2%. because he says it right here, to prevent this outcome, talking about the too low of interest rates, to prevent this outcome and adverse dynamics that could ensue, the new statement indicates that we will seek to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time. Therefore, following periods when inflation has been running persistently below 2%, appropriate monetary policy will likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. They are not trying to bring inflation down. That's it. They're just not. They're looking to bring inflation up. So Republicans aren't bringing inflation down. Democrats aren't bringing inflation down. Both of them want inflation up. Not that they even want it. It's the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve who wants it. And they're getting it. They're getting the expectation anyway. I don't know. Like, inflation's moderately above 2%. Right? I don't know what moderately above 2% was. That 2.2, 2.1, 3.8. I don't know what moderately above 2% is. They don't define it. And so it's easy for me to say that. It's easy for me to say they're looking to push for an elevated inflation expectation. How did they do that? Well, I don't know. What's going on right now? Tariffs, threats of tariffs, backing off of tariffs. Nobody knows what tariffs, 90-day in tariffs, negotiations of tariffs, flexibility in tariffs. What the hell is it? Well, not computers, not TVs, not laptops, not semiconductors, not any other electronics that everybody buys here in America. Okay, not all those. Is there anything else on the list? Oh, I'm sure there is, and there's probably some other exemptions and workarounds and other things that are going to pretty much make these tariffs ineffective. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that was what I was saying was going to happen and what seems to be happening because of my ideas on the credible threat theory. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I can see the future with the crystal ball, man. I'm not like, no, that's not it at all. It's like they were looking for elevated inflation expectation. And I go and I look out there in the news and some of the things that are being talked about. And since I already know the news is a propaganda machine and that nothing on there is real or accurate, and I can totally see it within the lumber industry straight up, even this last time around with the 25% tariff that I kept telling people to chill out about, but they wouldn't. And then you had all these articles coming out about how they're going to create all these high prices on everything from houses down to retail prices. And then it just disappeared. Mike, thank you so much for the $4.99. And the inflation monster said moderately above 350. Love your channel, bro. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate the $4.99 and the support for the channel. You guys are very awesome. This is our second video that we're doing today. The one that we did earlier was quite good. I mean, it's rolling. It's got like 16,000 views right now for a 2-hour video. That's really good. This one's already going on to an hour. But breaking this stuff down, I know is going to help you guys. I know it's going to help some people out there. There's 400 of you right now who are sticking around, internalizing this information. And every time I come out here and I share these articles or share these speeches and share how it is that we're seeing it in real time, that's another thing. People come out and they tell me, dude, don't you have any new information? I'm thinking every single one of these videos is talking about the real-time information that is happening. We have to keep going over the past speeches in order to see the credible threat theories that are taking place or the credible threats that are taking place today. I mean, if somebody was just like, dude, I heard about your credible threats. How does it work? And then they come to my channel and I'm like, well, you got to go and watch 1,000 videos. Right? Or you got to become a member of the channel for $1 a month. You got a handful of videos that are member onlys. It's going to take you a little while to get through them all, but we have broken down these speeches in a way that you will understand, that you can internalize and go in and read for yourself if you want to. Once you have internalized the information, you come back to these videos and it's just like having a conversation. You're seeing it, or you're finding evidence of it that I'm not even coming up with. And you're probably starting to see it in more ways, like, with other people talking, with the other economists out there who are talking and stuff on TV. There's so many people who have come to me and say, dude, man, I recognize the credible threat theory now in a way that I never seen before. Like, they see it at their jobs. They see it when they have the conversations with people. They see it in their own research. All right, Simon, I totally believe you, but our one YouTube channel, they have the ears of the entire world, so guess who's going to win? I totally believe you, but you are one YouTube channel. They have the ears of the entire world. I don't have any intentions on winning. I don't know what winning is except for me making the best and most appropriate decisions for me and my family. That's me winning. I don't know what you think is winning, but that's me winning. And so I'm not going to win any kind of fight against a new world order. I don't have a fight with them. They're not coming. They're not fighting me. If they're fighting me, they're like swinging at the no into space because I ain't fighting them. Right? Like I mean, there's no battle between me and the New World Order. I got my own battles, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. Right? And the people can incorporate them into their life, and they can go suffer in misery and depression and suffer and loss because that's exactly what happened to me when I tried to fight them. It doesn't work. There's no fighting the New World Order. I'm not going to do it, right? But I will make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself because winning is taking care of me and my family, and that's it. That's winning. After that, I don't know. Like there isn't like I can't save other people out there from the decisions that they're going to make for themselves. Some people are going to make super appropriate decisions. They're going to be way better decisions than I make, right? That's like I mean that's cool on them. There's other people who are going to make horrible decisions, and I'm not blaming them because I made horrible decisions myself. And hopefully one day they'll figure it out. Maybe on this channel they can. I don't know. Right. Simon, using your insight, I'm imagining a picture where the U.S. buys a mass buys in mass the critical minerals China has. There is a China-U.S. meeting in June, more debt issuance, world consumption ahead of the U.S. Yeah, you know what I see? I mean, if you really want, like, somebody was asking about the end game earlier. Like, what's the end game? And I'm like, end game? I don't know. There ain't no end game. I mean, if there was probably something that you're going to see come from this that would be like an ultimate like change to the whole thing is there's probably going to be some tokenization of everything. And that's what I see, like the removal of cash and the tokenizing of right down to our like even our hourly jobs, like our hourly wages and stuff like that being tokenized. And then things being done on the fly. Like this is like, like for example, cruising down the road paying for insurance, and that if you move over into the slow lane and let traffic pass or whatever, you just like a very courteous driver, I guess, so to speak, that and they kind of already have this anyway, but I think it would be like on the fly. Like you would see like a ticker of how much you were spending for insurance at the exact moment by the way that you were driving and the roads that you were taking and the lanes that you're in and the speeds and the way that and all that other stuff, and you could see it in real time. So like even like electricity, it'd be in real time. It would just be constantly ticking out of a wallet or something. And I can almost see it in this fashion because this is one of the ways in which that you would be able to limit the use, turn it on and off, track it, trace it, all the other stuff that people have ever kind of worried and been scared about. This is a way that it would definitely be taking place and be happening is through the digital tokenization of everything and through the digital wallets. So if there was an end game, it's going to be something in that nature, in my opinion. Right? And so to think about that is just like it's really like you can send your mind just kind of spinning on all kinds of like wild ideas on where it can go. With that being the case, that it's still an extreme hypothetical, I don't really give it that much thought other than that could happen, right? Instead, I try to focus in on what is happening and not what could come. Like everybody wants to know what could come because their ego is scared of the future and they want to be sure, right? Even if it's definite destruction, like even if they know like it's a nuclear bomb that's going to blow up on a particular day, they want to read all about it and know exactly how it's going to happen and get in detail of everything that's going to, instead of just being like, well, I'm going to go live the best life I can until that moment, right? Some people will actually want to research it right up until the moment that it goes off, right? Because they want to know exactly how they are going to die. And it's weird to think, but that's actually kind of one of the ways that I trigger people here on this channel with some of the, headlines or headlines with the titles and thumbnails, is by triggering people. And by triggering people, you can get their attention. And everybody's, like I said, they're all wanting to feel something. And so if you can make a feeling happen, or if you can give them that feeling of security or assurance, or if they're believe that they are certain, but then there's information that would lead them to be uncertain, they start diving into the uncertainty because they want to know. It's just like, well, if I'm certain and I'm blind to it, I want to know what's going on, and so they'll dive deeper into the uncertainty, only to just get more confused about what's going on. Did I get another super chat there? Joshua, thank you so much for the $4.99. Isn't it interesting how Trump is the new Jerome Powell when it comes to controlling the sentiment? No, that's not surprising. I mean, it's not the first time. And really, I was calling it out back during his first administration too. When he was saying that Jerome Powell should be lowering interest rates, taking interest rates into negative interest rates, right? Taking interest rates into negative territory and printing money. This is something that Donald Trump had said. And I'm thinking at the time he was saying, I was like, you can't possibly believe that, right? Like, you don't really think that that's a good idea. And then he says, all the rich people in the room know what I'm talking about. I'm like, of course they do, right? But yeah, I mean, you didn't honestly think that that was like a good idea. I was telling myself to this, and then I make fun of him for it. Because I don't think he was actually like, that's the way I would do it. Like, Fed would spend the money. And that's the way I do it like that, is because I don't think he was actually being serious. That's why I put on the clown show and do that, because it was a show. It wasn't reality. He didn't really want the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. He didn't really want them to be printing up money. What he was doing is he was lowering the inflation expectation and raising the real interest rates at the time. And it worked. It totally worked. And that was in collaboration with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve couldn't raise rates anymore. That's it. They were done. They were at 2.5% on the Fed funds rate. And Donald Trump says, oh, you stuck, huh? It's just like, that's okay. You need to raise rates. I can lower the inflation expectations, which will raise the real interest rates. And Jerome Powell's like, go for it, buddy. And Trump was like, here, hold my beer. Like, there's no inflation. The Fed should be printing money. And then everybody was just like, yeah, Jerome Powell don't know what he's talking about. The Fed should be a money printing machine. I mean, literally, this is what, like, people forget so easily, but that's literally what some of the conversations were taking place at the end of his administration. Like, the Fed is acting political by not printing money and taking interest rates into negative territory. Like, I mean, it's just like, it wasn't real. That isn't real stuff. But since most people don't understand the Fed, and they hear that coming out of Trump, they don't know what the Fed is. They don't know what it is that they were even what he's even talking about. They disagree with Donald Trump because they think he's some magic man. Right. But he's not. He's really good at what he does. I give him a lot of credit for it. But like, what he is doing is not what people think he's doing. And so since he's really good at, like, basically duping the people, it's like, it's like one of the best at it. I mean, Obama was really, really, really good. It's hard to, I mean, I would have to say that Obama was better, but, Trump is better than most, better than all the rest of them, I mean, by far. It's just like, so, like, him and Obama are probably, I mean, he's a very close second. I mean, given the rest of this administration, we'll see how it goes. Maybe he might have beat out Obama for, best at duping the people. I don't know. We'll find out. All right, losing the trade war is winning when you really, really big economy. Well, I don't know. I needed a triggering thumbnail. I just put the losing the trade war because I figured we'd be talking about trade wars. So, again, like, to be honest with you guys, I have made like so much more doing fear mongering, triggering headlines than I have made in a while. Like I made more in the first 11 days, 12 days here on YouTube than I made in the entire month of February on YouTube. All right. So it's just like, it's just the way it is. And I don't like it because most people end up judging the video by the headlines. In fact, I get a lot of comments that are literally triggered by the headline itself. And you can tell that the people didn't actually watch the videos. So, it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. But if I want the videos to get spread around, to get more people to join in so that they can actually internalize this credible threat theory so that they can make better decisions for themselves, and I can make more money by doing that, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm sorry if it's like, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry at all. It's a bummer that it has to be done that way. And it really is. And I like the guy who says, I like the clickbaity titles. He thinks they're fun. So, I mean, thank you. If you like them, I appreciate that because I'm going to keep them going. That's just the way it is. Now, I understand newspapers wouldn't sell if you didn't. Listen to Art of the Deal. People tell me that all the time. 2 times he acts is old. It works in 2000s. Well, it also works out incredibly well for the credible threat theory too. So, yeah, which is something that I had been deployed or been like I don't know, like the idea that all the information that I have had has literally been deployed out there into the world of data that can be gathered, and nobody goes out there and gets this. And since it's like treatment of information that they are doing, I'm trying to deploy the information myself. And it's literally, that's the way it feels. Like I'm trying to put it out there, deploy it out there, right? I want people to pick it up. I want them to run with it. I want them to see it as well. And when I think about like somebody coming up and saying something like this, well, it's the art of the deal. And I'm thinking, no, my theory is running past this administration. When Trump is gone and the next administration comes up, I will still be stuck on this particular theory. It will go back to this date. There may be changes going into the future, especially if they change the sentiment or not the sentiment, but the statement on long run goals and monetary policy strategies. If that changes, the theory will begin to adjust and change with it. But up until this point, I am saying the same thing over and over again. You go back through my videos, like I can pull videos from 2 years ago talking about the neutral interest rate, and it's exactly how I'm describing it right now and what it is that they were doing and attempting to do with elevated inflation expectation and pulling the neutral interest rate ever higher. Again, I put a video out like 2 years ago that somebody had taken and did a really, really good edit with some animations and some character moving things going on. It was really funny. And they did a great job on it. In fact, I think there's a link to it still on my on the community page of the channel. You can go and find it for yourself. And like that video came out like 2 years ago, and then he did the edit to it like a year and a half ago or something, or maybe a little longer. In that video, I mean, I'm describing still what it is that I'm describing today. Like there's no changes, right? They are trying to raise the elevated inflation expectation, raises the neutral interest rate. By the neutral interest rate moving up ever higher, it makes it less restricted on the economy. People wonder why we have such a resilient, economy that doesn't seem to fall into recession, even though we've had predictions of recessions like every single year for 3 years now. If it ever gets to a point in which that the Fed does lower interest rates, if they can drop far enough below that neutral interest rate, they may actually stimulate the economy. And this is something that I have been saying over and over and over and over again for years, because that's what I believe that they're trying to do. And it seems to be taking place. Like, I mean, why would I deviate from it if that's what's happening? Yeah, all this other stuff is happening too, right? But this is happening, and I called it out a while ago, a long time ago, before Trump, right? Before the elections. Joshua with the $4.99. I run a big finance page teaching stock market fundamentals, and I'm running into same problem. People are addicted to fear, not truth. Yeah, they absolutely are, Joshua. And I actually sometimes, a lot of times, I kind of almost look at it like a vortex. Right? It's like you get sucked into this vortex, like you start spinning into like, well, what if? And then there's this problem, and then pretty soon you're just like spiraling down the drain. And so I don't even like really try to engage in the vortex itself in anywhere near it, because it really does just kind of start sucking you in. Most people, again, once you realize that it's because of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's within them, and the ego wants to be safe. First of all, it wants to be safe, and if they are aware of the dangers, then for some reason that's somewhat of a safe feeling. Like if you're aware of it, it's better to be aware of the danger than to not be aware of it. So, like, if you're aware of the danger, then you feel like you can protect yourself from it. So, going and searching for all the danger somehow makes the ego feel safe. Does that seem weird? Like, going and looking for all the things that could possibly destroy your world is somehow making the ego feel safe. And I know, because this is like, I'm literally describing the way that I would feel when I would go and do that sort of research. Right? And that's what's funny about it. You go and do that research, you could be researching things like how to make money online, but instead you're researching how is the new world order going to destroy my life. Which one what kind of outcome do you think you're going to have from those two different studies? Like every day, you come home and you're like, okay, who's the next Alex Jones guy that I can listen to that's going to destroy my world? Or who is the next person who is teaching how it is to read company data sheets or whatever so that you can pick the best stock? Like, I don't know what the hell you would look at. I don't know how to do stock picks, right? But you get where I'm getting at, right? Like, I want to learn something. I mean, if you're going to learn something, do you really want to learn about how your world is going to get destroyed? Or do you want to learn something that says, hey, this is how you enhance and make your life better? Like, it's your choice. This thing right here, it'll teach you whatever you want to know. Like, I mean, just ask it to just teach. Okay, there we go. You guys back? Sorry, I had to turn the dang Wi-Fi off. Okay, Chris Six Strings, thank you so much for the $2. UE is credible threat theory, essentially influence. It's essentially influence. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good way of putting it. You think about it. Think like, as if you want to understand the credible threat theory to its heart, just think of the gold machine, right? If there was a guy out there who invented a gold machine, what if there was a guy who had a gold machine, and with that gold machine, he could produce as much gold at will with very little cost or energy? What would happen to the price of gold? It would plummet. So what if there was this credible threat of tariffs on day one? I mean, in 30 days. I mean, on Liberation Day. I mean, on the 9th. I mean, on some day in the future, in 90 days after negotiations, flexibility, whatever. This is the gold machine. So how is it that people have internalized that information? Me personally, I took it with a grain of salt and said, okay, I'm going to wait and see if there's actually a tariff that be had. And then I'll wait and see what's going to take place from it. Other people, they took a hook, line, and sinker, ran out there and started raising prices, and now they have to adjust them back down for their customer, because their customers are going, hey, I didn't see lumber prices moving up, so what's going on here, yo? You see where I'm kind of getting at. So is credible threat essentially influence? Yeah, absolutely. It's the feelings that you get from the information that you have received. If you believe that this guy is going to be able to produce as much gold at will with very little cost or energy, are you going to run out there and buy a bunch of gold? Does that influence your gold purchases, your gold purchasing decision? I mean, I wouldn't mind if some guy who's over there is like, woohoo, in my garage, man, I'm pumping out bars of gold. Doesn't cost me a damn thing. And I'd be like, well, that was the last bar of gold I own. Right? And why would you, like, if this dude is going to just make as much as he wants, and why would you want to be even in, like, saying, oh, I got this rare thing in my, ooh, guess it ain't so rare anymore. Drop that thing like a hot potato. But it has to be credible. It has to be real. It has to be scientifically proven. Or, right, how many people believe Donald Trump on day one? How many believed him in 30 days? How many people believed in Liberation Day with the sign and all the things that says, hey, man, we're going to do all these tariffs to all these different people. And then 2 days later, he's pitching that thing off to the side and saying, okay, in 90 days, 10%, whatever, or 10% until 90 days or whatever. Like, nothing is what he said it was going to be, except for the credible threat that it's going to happen. Outside of that, there's no real, like, I don't know what the hell has happened. Like, even today, I'm like finding this is like TV, semiconductor, solar panels. That's not what else is on the list. A whole bunch of other stuff and workarounds and exemptions and probably, other things that'll keep the tariffs from actually existing. But yeah, I mean, credible threats is essentially influence. I mean, it's kind of weird to think about it so simply as that, but yeah, it is. It's influence. All right, trash can man. How can you use the credible threat theory to your advantage? I just don't understand it yet. But trash can man, you do. You just don't. I think you actually do. You just don't realize it. And that's I think a lot of times is what ends up happening with the information that we gather is that we just really don't trust ourselves in what it is that we are doing with the information to then say, hey, is this useful or helpful, or what is it that I need to do? Because the ego, again, wants to say, hey, this information should be A, B, C, D, outcome, profit, and proof, right? Or something of that nature. That's not the way it works. When you're driving to work, here's an example. I used to have a routine. I would stop at this gas station and I would get a cup of coffee and like this donut. And then after work, I would get a pizza pocket and a beer. Right. And this is like in my 20s when I was doing construction. And this is like my daily routine. I would do this all the time. And once I realized, it was just like, oh man, I'm like going into debt, and I've been spending like $20 a day just in this two purchases right here. And I could be saving like $400 a month easy just by cutting out these two particular things. Right? And so that was like a decision that I made based off of this idea that I was just like, okay, I'm doing it wrong. Change the way I'm looking at it, have this different view of it. You do the exact same thing when you internalize new information, new data. Is that regardless if you know it or not, you have now taken on different decision-making process. You may or may not be stopping at the gas station to get that cup of coffee, right, going into the future. And when you don't stop, or if you were to stop and get one or not stop and get one, the information that you have internalized is giving you that decision to do that. I can afford it, or I should be spending it on something else. So when you're thinking about the credible threat theory and you're saying, how is it that this is helping me out? Every single day when you're making that decision to invest in that company, to buy that cup of coffee, to make that trip, to do whatever it is, to buy a hamburger instead of the steak, this is because you have taken in information that is leading you down the process of making these decisions. You're just naturally going to be making the decisions appropriately. So now, what a lot of times we end up doing is that we have this ego that says, no, I want to take this information, and then I want you to tell me how it is that I become a millionaire and be really nice and safe, where I don't have to worry about anything for the rest of my life. That's what you want from it. But that's not up to that's the meaning that you're trying to give the information, and that's kind of an inaccurate way of doing it, since you shouldn't be giving the information meaning. The meaning behind it is that this information is coming to me so that I can make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself. If you're giving it any other meaning than that, what you are doing is giving it an expectation, giving it excess potential, and what you're going to end up having is a counterbalance from that, which is usually the opposite effect of what it is that you are looking for. So, like, you're asking for something that's very complicated when it's not that complicated. It's just internalize the information and then go forth. Literally. That's it. Let go of outcome, let go of expectations, let go of all that stuff, and just go forth. I mean, that's how I do it. I don't put any, like, I don't put any belief system into action that says that this information is going to give me the power to, like, every decision that I make is going to be leading me to the most wonderful experiences I have ever had. Like, no, it's not like that, right? That's not the way I'm looking at it. But every day I have to make a decision, right? Every day I have to say I have to go to work. I have to do my side hustles. I have to decide whether or not I'm going to invest. I have to decide whether I'm going to be paying off debt. I have to decide what it is that we're going to do going into the future with the kids and college and stuff like that. There's all these different things that I have to incorporate into my decision process. And when I incorporate the credible threat theory into it, I'm looking at the idea of elevated inflation expectations that then is now incorporated into my decision process that says, I'm not worried about tariffs. I'm not worried about inflation. I'm not worried about any of these things out there that a lot of people are worried about, like hyperinflation and stuff like that. Like, if you were imagining a hyperinflation scenario, how can you save for college tuition for your kids? That's going to be a very difficult thing to do. If you think that the whole world is going to come undone because of hyperinflation, how do you save money for your kids? How do you invest into the future? How do you do any of that stuff? You would be stuck in gold and silver, believing that it's the only way you can go. So the meaning that you put behind it is one that says, this information is helping me make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself. That's it. Outside of that, what decision you make is going to be different from what your neighbor makes. Even with the same information, you won't be doing the same decision. It's impossible to answer your question. It's like literally impossible. However, the answer is very simple and it's within you. It's not even hard. It's like I can't even answer it, but yet it's sitting right there. You don't even have to look for it. You've already got it. And I know, like most people listen to that and they'll be like, okay, crystal grip and hippie bullshit, right? It's not. It's literally like looking for something that you already have. Right? And once you realize that you already have it, that it already exists, that you just literally have to be in the energy of that existence, and then it'll naturally just come to you. Everything in the world is in abundance. It's always there, all the time, ever present. How it is that you have blocked yourself from it is literally your belief system that says it's out of reach. It's limited. It's in limitation. It's scarce. Then when you start looking at it, it's just like, no, it's always there. It's always abundant. It's ever present. Then you just start seeing the world in a much different way. You don't look at the world as something that is difficult to get through. It's very easy. It's very flowing. There's really nothing to it. The hardest part is actually enjoying it and finding peace. Finding that you're content, that the things that you have in your world are all that you could ever really ever wanted, because that's what you are believing and thinking. Everybody else who's just like, no, man, you ain't got no $1 million. It's just like, no, you ain't got no $1 million, and you shouldn't have to push that on me to have $1 million. I don't you may want $1 million and that will make your life very content and very happy and be very meaningful to you. To me, I don't know what that would mean. That doesn't, it would be like, okay, so now there's a bank account with $1 million. Great, wonderful. Okay, put that up, I mean, did it change my life any? Absolutely not. Right now I could do just about anything I want. I'm doing what I want. This is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be chill, dude at the lumberyard, putting out my YouTube videos, travel around every once in a while doing my thing. Like, this is my life. This is excellent. This is perfect. I don't know why people would say, man, you need more. And I was like, I don't. I don't need more. I don't need complications. I don't need fancy vehicles. I don't need luxurious stuff. I need to pay my bills on time. I need to be able to eat ribeyes. I need to be able to, that's it, really. That's my needs in a view. I need a view, and then my needs are over. Outside of that is just, it's just a bonus. Joshua, thank you again for the $4.99. It's pretty clear what's going on if you step back and don't get caught up with the emotional propaganda. Laugh out loud. I appreciate all your videos. Yeah, you bet, Joshua. I thank you and appreciate the super chat. You guys are very supportive of the channel, and it really is. Like and that's the thing. Like everybody sees it a little differently. Like when I come out and I share the credible threat theory, and I share the ideas and the speeches, and where I've highlighted in those speeches, this is my interpretation and my opinion of it. Other people have taken this in. They've gone through, read the speeches, gone and listened to the member-only videos in which that we broke these speeches down. They've internalized it, and then they see it differently. They don't see it quite the same way. Like they're looking at it from their job, from their perspective, from their career, whatever it's going on, from their family point of view, from their investments. And they don't quite see it the same way I see it, because we don't see the economy the same way, because we don't have the same economy. You and I have different economies, and we're going to see it differently no matter how we look at it. Like we can sit here and talk about it all day long. There's no way we're going to see it the same way, because we got two different lives happening here. And that's where I find like this is really good information for people to internalize for themselves. But then once you recognize it, once you see it, it's just like it's just obvious to you, and then you get it. Chris Strings with the $5. Thank you so much. Trump is influencing the economy via the Skynet tactic, provoke allies into eliminating domestic rivals, tariffs, then take resources unopposed. Okay, so if I was to guess on an idea on what it is that is taking place right now with the tariffs and all that, is that, and I know we talked about this earlier, and a lot of people disagree with it, and that's fine. Like you can disagreeing with it is just fine by me. I mean, I don't have a problem with disagreement. The only time I ever really have a problem is when somebody is just like really like kind of getting into hateful insultings, stuff like that. Like I mean, if you're gonna be in the room, like let's trying to have a conversation here, and you can disagree all day long, but like being insulting to other commenters or something of that nature, spamming, well, that was another one. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. What was the question? Man, it's getting late. There we go. Oh yeah. So what I mean, if there was anything what Trump is trying to do and influence right now, if I was to guess anything, it's to try and create a situation in which, again, to elevate the inflation expectation, but to also create in a situation in which that you can export more dollars. See, like this whole idea that they're trying to bring dollars back to the United States. I mean, when you say it sounds right, just like, hey, I want more money back here at the home. Yeah, okay, yeah, sounds like, yeah, I want more money at home too, right? But really, that's actually a bad deal for the United States in the sense that it creates a problem outside of the United States for funding dollar-denominated debt, and that creates a situation in which that the dollar would strengthen. See, if there's not enough dollars out there to cover the dollar-denominated debt, then the demand for dollars starts to go up. If the demand for dollars starts to go up, our domestic suppliers to foreign buyers, like we have manufacturers that supply to foreign purchasers, that becomes very expensive, and it puts a burden on our domestic manufacturers. Weakening the dollar gets more exports out there. Right? And this is like everybody's kind of racing to the bottom in quantitative easing. Like everybody wants to weaken their currency to get the most out of their exports, to get their exports moving. So that's like kind of the problem that the United States would face if we start bringing a bunch of dollars back. And then also on top of that, it creates these dollar funding stresses in other nations, and then the global economy starts to slow down, and then we have issues with them buying our debt and all kinds of stuff. So really, like if I was to say anything, bringing dollars back is exactly the wrong move, right? But it's not me saying that like, hey, this is a wrong or right move, because wrong or right is really just more about the position that you have taken. If you are like sitting heavy in dollars and the dollar strengthens, like you're going to do quite well. If we go into recession or deflationary pressures because of it and you're holding dollars, you're going to do quite well. So that's like a good thing, but really it's a bad thing when you think about like economic activity or something of that nature. So good or bad, It's just the position that you have taken. There is no good or bad, right? It's just the way that you have dealt with it. So now, if we take on the decision or the idea that we were wanting a weaker currency so that we can have more exports going out there to the world, that's like, good manufacturing jobs need to export stuff. Okay. So if you have a strong dollar due to the fact that you're bringing them home, that's a problem. Weakening your dollar means you want to get your dollars out of the United States. That means trying to export dollars. How do you get those dollars out of the United States other than buying stuff, right? Buying stuff is the best way to do it. Well, if you have a debt-saturated economy who can't really increase their consumption anymore, how do you get even more dollars out of the system, right? Or out of the United States and out there into the rest of the globe, other than inflict tariffs, have counter tariffs, and then remove your tariffs and leave the counter tariffs in place. Now you're exporting even more money. Right? See, think about it. If the idea that we were putting tariffs on companies or on other countries to make them pay their fair share to bring dollars in, then counter tariffs would do the exact opposite. If you remove your tariffs and leave the counter tariffs in place, you would be exporting even more money. Well, what's happening? I mean, this is something that I talked about a while ago. Now, whether or not it all takes place, that's why I'm saying I don't even trust any of these ideas of tariffs or what's happening right now. I want to see it actually in place. I want to see what it is at the end of the day, not this sign that says these are all the nations who are going to get tariffs and how much they're going to get tariffed, only to have that pitched out 2 days later, right? And say, oh, they're getting 10% for 90 days with flexibility negotiations and possible extensions, workarounds and exemptions. I mean, it's just like all this stuff. To me, that lines right up with the credible threat theory that says, okay, I'm going to back away from the noise until I find out what it is that's really happening out there. 404. Man, we got a bunch of people here tonight. All right. 10 Canadian from Glenn. Thank you so much. Except Copilot AI says about UE, FOMC breakdown, I find it refreshing that rather than just regurgitating the official language, which tends to be intentionally opaque, Simon offers insights. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the super chat and the support for the channel. All right, trash can. That person is throwing his words like a dagger. Smoking weed is just a weakness. Stock market manipulation is definitely not happening. Nothing to see here. It's late. It is late. I loved playing poker and having an Adderall. All right. We just not give you anxiety. Anxiety's already with you. Yeah, that's true. That's not really the calculus. Okay, poor countries can't afford USA exports unless the dollar is weak. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Like all the stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff out there to follow and watch, and the truth is that most of the stuff that people look at is actually real. Like all the New World Order stuff, all the government takeover, all the crap that they're doing. I mean, a lot of it is real, and it's not like most of it. However, it's not it's generally the symptom of another problem that's happening out there. And really, when I find it, it's probably coming down to one of the 4 economic theories. Like it's either Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, Cantillon effect, the bullwhip effect, or now my new theory, this monetary policy theory, or the credible threat theory. Like if you understood and internalized those 4 basic economic forces, right? The Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, Cantillon effect, and the bullwhip effect. And then he also learned the credible threat theory. Like all this, everything clears up. Everything gets very, very clear in how it is that's going down. And you start looking at some of the problems that are faced out there in the world, some of the current affairs that are happening, and you see them as symptoms. You don't see them as the problems. You recognize them as the symptom of the bigger problems that are happening out there, and generally it has to do with the way that new money flows into the system. How it is that it creates luxurious experiences, and how it is that it drives out domestic manufacturers and drives in ever-increasing amounts of domestic or foreign production. Once you see it, once you recognize it, and you know those economic forces are at play, it's like literally everything else becomes secondary to them. Wealth inequality is business as usual. It's all about money velocity. It really is. Personal credible threat theory, that's a good one, right? Well, it kind of is, Trash Can Man, and I mean, I think that's really the way to look at it. Somebody was just like, I mean, you think about it, the credible threat of lumber tariffs would have impacted me dramatically if it wasn't for the fact that I am well aware of the credible threat theory and how it is that the tariff or at least the threat of a tariff impact on lumber would not have like the profoundness that everybody wanted it to have, causing $10,000 increase to the price of a house and all this, all this stuff. I mean, shit, the articles were thick, man. You could find them all over the place. And I'm like, man, this is a bunch of people who have no idea about what they're talking about. And then and all of a sudden, gone. And I'm like, whoa, where'd you all go? What, you all had issues. You had problems. You all raised prices and quit doing bids. And now, and we're going to do all these jobs and all this other stuff. And literally nothing changed. Nothing happened. I'm like, what in the world, man? Like, people were calling me up in a panic. Do I buy my lumber right now? What do I do? And I'm like, just chill, right? Like, just chill out. There's nothing going on, right? There was lumber tariffs, back in August. Nobody knew about them. Nobody cared. These tariffs right now have some speculative, like, purchases going into the futures, but that contract doesn't close for another 6 weeks. Everything's cool. Just chill. All right? And then come to find out there's no lumber tariffs at all. News evaporates. 34% duty on tariffs or on lumber, and I'm looking for the articles, nothing, crickets, nowhere, right? And I'm like, what's important to people and what's not only depends on whether or not the propaganda machine wants to deliver the message. That's it. Right? Because 34% duty on lumber tariffs should be pretty big news, considering that a 25% like credible threat of lumber tariffs was all over the place. You would think that the actual news of it happening would be something that people would want to look at. But no, we've got to keep that hush hush. I don't really want anybody to know about that. But the credible threat, they wanted everybody to know about that thing. So now you can internalize that. Like me personally, I just looked at it and I just literally telling my customers to chill out, that there is no lumber tariff, that it's not going to happen. That it hasn't happened yet, that you have to wait and see what's going to happen, right? And that until it does, don't stress it. There was people, actually saw some comments that were saying like, man, you are delivering dangerous information by telling people to chill out by not preparing for the tariff, for the lumber tariff. And I'm like, whatever, I've heard that one before. Like spreading dangerous misinformation, like we did a video on it. It's crazy how much Trump consumes people. Absolutely, Kirk. Yeah. Just tell them 2020, same thing. We said the name Trump like 150 times tonight. Oh yeah, we did. Yep. Yesterday on 1997, unfortunately, it's gotten even more corrupt and fake since then. Simon, what's important to most financially small people like you is only what hits their pocketbooks, even though you are paying attention to the real game. Most people's you're absolutely right. Most people do not pay attention to anything outside of what it is that's important to their life. No, I agree with that. Like, the information that I am studying and stuff like that, this isn't important to people. Like, yeah, no, working class people don't study this stuff. When we do, we have a huge advantage. And so people who don't make money, much money like me, you're right. But I'm not college educated. I don't have really any kind of financial background. I don't come from a family of wealth. I don't have anything going on that gives me any reason to have been able to make it in a position or in a place that is the 10th most expensive place in the entire nation to try and buy a house. And yet here it is, I'm pulling it off. So something about this information gives you an advantage beyond just the regular, simple, broke ass people. Right? I mean, I don't have a whole lot, but man, I'm being able to pull off what some people would consider somewhat of like the American dream-ish kind of thing. It's a lot. Like American dream to me was like job, one job, wife, kids, retirement, all the other stuff. Everybody's cool, no worries, no problems. That to me, the American dream. Pulling this off is hard. This is a hard work. It takes a lot. All right, Joshua, think about all the stocks that fell 40% based on tariff threat, but nothing fundamentally has changed biz environment wise. Yep, exactly. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You can really tell this dude don't have a whole lot. Well, beloved, I know that every time you put that comment out there, I get a little bit more. I mean, you know, you're sitting there watching me make money right now. Thanks. I watch every show you produce and some of them twice or 3 times. Well, thank you, Trash Can Man. Then you should know this stuff better than me. Like, I mean, if you've watched all my shows, man, you ought to know the credible. You should be able to put out a video and start doing credible threat theory. Oh man, I busted my shoulder. All right. Keep believing the. Oh, I don't want to read that. All right. I'm just got owned. I don't have very good memory recall, but I have been asking you questions about your theory the whole time. Yeah, you can, Trash Can, man. I really appreciate you being here because you have been here quite a bit. Like every single stream, you're busting the algorithm out there with the comments and everything, so I really appreciate it. And I know sometimes my responses are like, a little sarcastic and kind of snippy or whatever, that, however you want to describe them, but I don't know. Somebody told me that they can tell that I work in a hostile work environment. And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, I wonder if I created that. All right. People need authentic people. I love you for bingo night. That's cool. Well, thank you, Kirk. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that I really enjoy about my week is going and calling bingo. Um, it's anywhere from, there'll be anywhere from 30 to 50 people there. And they're regulars, they're regulars and kind of the old timers. And I talk to them, and that's their one day a week. It's their one day a week that they get out to get away, to socialize, to step away from whatever it is that they're going on in their life. And for 2.5 hours, they're down there at the workers, and I'm telling jokes and I'm calling numbers, and they're playing the game, and they're, hanging out with their friends. To be able to grab somebody's attention like that, to get them away from their life, to be able to have them in an energy that is fun, where they're enjoying the company, they're enjoying the friends, to keep that energy going for, a couple of hours. To me, like that having that in my life is probably one of the coolest things that I could have. I've been doing it a long time, 20 years. Like 20 years I've been calling that game. And it's different. Like when I first started calling, all the people in the bar, all the players, bartender, the owner of the bar, all completely different. Nobody's original. I'm the only thing that's original there. Right? There's some that are old, have been playing for a really long time, but the people who were there when I called that first game, they're all gone. Like some of them are still alive, some of them have passed away, but the owner is different, the players are different, the bartenders are different, everybody's different. But the game continues on. And I'm thinking to myself, someday I won't be the one calling the bingo game. But I'm pretty sure that game will continue on. Like, I think that game will forever be there. It's one of those power pendulums that started back in the early 80s from people who don't exist either. The people who started the game back in the early 80s don't exist. Like, some of them exist. They're in reality, they exist out there, but they're nowhere near the game. They're nowhere near the bar. They don't play. It doesn't exist in that original sense, And that's cool that exists out there for those people. The ones who go and play the game and to have shared that experience with them for all those years. I love it. I love it. All right. The game continues on. We take capitalism or bingo right now. Yeah. Bingo's way better. Bingo's the best thing in the world. All right, I do have to give it to you for doing the research and relying on the message, as you and I know most people do not read. Yeah, and well, the thing is like also trusting yourself that the information that you have gathered is accurate. Like, that was the one thing that was just like, I'm sticking to my guns. I don't care if it feels like I'm going far out on a limb and way out by myself and out in the middle of nowhere. I'm sticking to my guns on this because I can't see it any other way. I literally cannot see it. People tell me, look at it another way. I can't. I've tried. I can't see it any other way because of all the information that I've gathered contradicts everything everything else. It's just like my view. I can't help it. I got the proof right here in front of me, All right, Joshua, $1.99. You're a very wise guy. Don't listen to the haters. Oh, it's hard to not listen to the haters because I read all the comments and I want to take them all seriously because I want to take you guys seriously. So when I find a comment that, comes from somebody who's just like, trying to give me trying to get my goat or whatever, it's hard not to be triggered by it because I'm trying to take each comment very seriously. So to just kind of blow a comment off or to give somebody a hard time after they give me the comment, it literally is a reaction, a triggering reaction from it because I don't want to see those things. I just want to have good comments and, questions and comments that says, hey, and, this enhances our conversation. This is like, something that contradicts it. This is, something that we can use for usefulness, whatever. But when somebody says, oh man, you're just an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about, it's just like, man, that is not helpful and useful. All right. If that's the case, just go find another channel to be on. You don't have to be here. All right. This is for people who want to be here. And thank you for the $1.99. Thank you everybody for being in here tonight. We got 386 people with 269 likes, $49 in super chats because you guys are always so very supportive of the channel. We're an hour and 48 minutes into it. I'm going to call it at 2 hours. But I think this was a good one to kind of break it down again, just to kind of talk about some of the, some of the credible threat theory, some of the different speeches that are out there, but especially recognizing that, situations where the on again, off again, on again, off again tariff, the threat of tariffs going on and on like this is how they are gaining the power for the credible threat theory. By elevating the inflation expectation and pushing it into the future, you can see how it's going to raise the neutral interest rate. These things are very complicated to wrap your head around, but if you keep sticking with the channel, you keep sticking with the credible threat theory, it'll become more recognizable as time goes on. And, you know, those of us who are seeing it, we love it. Like, we see this stuff in such a different light. All these professional economists out there, we can almost find it like, not to like point and laugh at them. That's not like the way to do it, like, at all. But it's almost as if like you can see them regurgitating all the same information. They're all getting it from the same place, and that it's wrong. That they are misguided with, how many people just say 2% target? Once they do that, they have absolutely destroyed every bit of strategy that they could have ever possibly had. So it's really important to internalize this information for yourself. Like I said, like, you guys see me, I stick to my guns. I do not deviate. I am not falling for anybody else's, like, tricks or, whatever, saying, you got to look at it differently. I look at it for the way that I look at it. You look at it the way you look at it. We'll see who's right in the end. And since I've been calling out this credible threat theory and how it is that it relates into the economy, and I've been accurate in so many ways, I'm not going to be accurate about everything. Nobody can. I mean, hell, I make a million predictions. How can you possibly get them all right? But when you make predictions as bold as, what are you going to say when lumber comes back down to its normal price? And that's when it's at 1,700 per thousand, its all-time high. That's a pretty good feeling, right? To be able to nail that and say, yeah, I did it. And then, like, even now with these credible threat theory of the tariffs, even this seems like, I don't feel like I'm like absolutely nailing it, but it seems pretty damn accurate when you consider that from day one to 30 to Liberation Day to somewhere in 90 days with flexibility, negotiations and, exemptions. Joshua, 499. The mainstream professionals are the position to keep the masses informed, aka sell them what they want to hear. Yeah, and this is what's funny is that it's never been offered to me, but I've heard other YouTubers getting offered money to talk about particular topics. And to be honest, I think that would be cool to get that offer. Like, I wouldn't do it, but just to know that I was offered something like that, to say that this is a real thing taking place, like, I would laugh. Like, I think somebody's joking. They're like, okay, so, like, I would think that would just be like an absolute confirming experience for me, for somebody to come to me and say, hey man, I would love for you to interview these particular dudes and talk about these particular articles, and we'll give you $10,000 to do it. Right? Like, I have never had that happen. And I would love just for somebody to offer something like that to me, because then I could be like, yeah, got you suckers, because then I would actually do it, and I would screw up their whole interview, and everything that they would talk about, I would just like expose the hell out of it, and probably end up getting sued for that 10 grand. But I don't care, because I would just, like, that's what I would do with that, right? But I've never been offered, I've never seen that, and nor like, I know other YouTubers have mentioned that, and I do know one personally who said that they were actually sent money that they sent back. So it's like, I know it exists out there, that the push for misinformation, like, literally right through the social media channels, like through YouTube channels like this or whatever. I've never been offered. Like I said, if I ever get offered, I would just, like, be like, oh wow, yeah, you want me to talk about those things? Sure, come out, like, and then screw it all up for them. Because I'm that type of guy. Remember, like, I don't know how many people caught it when I did I did an interview. I don't want to say who they were. I don't want to say who they were, because I don't want to, like, kind of raise the stink with them, but they were ultimately like salesmen for silver, like silver salesmen. And I called him out in the middle of the interview and I said, you guys are just keep pushing this thing like, like silver's like the way to protect you because you have all this in fear and crap about inflation. And then you're going to find inflation comes down and that silver didn't really protect them from inflation. And, you guys shouldn't be doing that. You guys are pushing this stuff. You're pumping, dumping. And like I literally called him right out in the interview, and the dude was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this dude is doing this," right? But he actually finished the interview off and put that on YouTube. Like everything that I said, I figured they would have edited it out, but they didn't edit. They like left it in there. And I never got called back for another interview with those guys. And yeah, I mean, I don't think he was real appreciative of the way that I said it, but I mean, at least he was cool enough to put it out there like that. But that's one thing that I like. I don't hold back on anything, guys. Yeah. When I was doing, like, I haven't done an interview, like, interviewed, one of the other, YouTubers, George Gammon or somebody like that. I haven't done one of those type of interviews in a very long time where I was the one who was actually conducting the interview. But I think to myself, most of these people do edits and I don't do edits. So when you come on to the Uneducated Economist, you better bring your A game. That's all there is, because whatever you say, the audience is going to get it, because that's the only way I do it. Yeah, even if it's screwed up or not. Yeah. Yui, what was your first professional speaking gig? The very first one, like, I mean, if you're outside of doing like the bingo thing, the very first speaking gig that I ever did was the Rebel Capitalist in Houston back in what was that? 2021, wasn't it? January of 2021. I think this is when that Houston Rebel Capitalist event took place, and that was a big one. All Nighter was there. I'm sure a few other you guys were there too. But that's where I met All Nighter for the first time. Actually, we met on here on YouTube, but that was the first time we met in person. But that was a big one. That was 850 people. And that was my very first time that I had ever spoke on stage to a group of people, like, like economics and stuff like that. Like I had been doing the bingo game, but that was about it. I hadn't done the plays, hadn't done any of that stuff yet. Well, I did do the play, but it was just rehearsals and we did one show. So I didn't actually get the experience of being on stage doing shows. I did get the experience of doing the rehearsals, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, that was the first one. It was early in the morning. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when I went on. It was right after Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki was on stage screaming and cussing and yelling and had the whole crowd just cheering and yelling. And I'm thinking it's 8 o'clock in the morning and I got to go on next. And I'm nervous. I am so nervous about doing this. Like, I have no idea what to think or experience. I mean, I've never spoken in front of that many people. I mean, like I've done YouTube and I had like, a live stream that got up to like, 1,000 people one time, but I'd never been in front of people, like 850 people, like real people. And so I was really nervous. I get the mic, I get up on stage, I introduce myself, I start telling some like kind of little simple introductory kind of joke kind of things. I hear the crowd laughing, they're giggling a little bit. They're cheering me on. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm connected with them. Things are going. I'm talking, I'm using words, right? I don't even know what the hell I'm saying. Like I had rehearsed and practiced what it was that I was going to say up there. But I'm just like, I'm so like, I mean, I'm like essentially blacked out. I'm in like, I went into flow state. I didn't know it at the time, but because I don't remember really doing anything except for just saying words. And then at one point, as I'm doing my thing and I'm kind of going along and I'm like 10, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes into it, I reach over and I put my hand on the podium and like I literally come to in a way that everybody is there. And like I'm staring at like this sea of eyes. And I'm like, I have no idea what I just said. And I have no idea what I'm supposed to say next. I'm like literally standing there on stage and I'm like, I've lost my place. And I said it out loud. I said, I lost my place. And I'm thinking, oh crap. Now, the only thing I thought of right then is what the director of in the acting teacher that I had, Karen said. She goes, if you go up, which means that you forgot your lines and you don't know what to say, just start saying the next line you can think of. Just whatever it is that you can think of as far as the next line that you could ever possibly think would be next, just go with it. That whatever the next line is. Even if you think it's somewhere down the play or whatever, just say it. So here I am, I'm blacked out. I mean, I come to, and I'm realizing I'm in this, sea of eyes that are staring at me. I have been saying words, don't know what they were, don't know what I'm about ready to say next. And so I just thought to myself, after I said I lost my place, all I thought of was open your mouth and start using words. That's it. That's the only thing that ran across my head. And so that's exactly what I did. I just started speaking words again. I do not know what I said. I really do not remember even being on stage. Um, what I do remember is kind of finishing up and doing a little bit of Q&A, and then George saying, hey, your time is up. So that was my first experience on the stage. It was absolutely incredible, the most thrilling thing ever. After that, getting up on stage was a lot easier as far as the speaking engagements. George gave me another opportunity at the last Rebel Capitalist to go and share some of my thoughts and ideas on the Rebel Capitalist event. Got to speak at Zuber's event a couple of times. Went to the Silver Symposium, got to do that one. It's a little bit of a different kind of event, that one was, but it was still cool. A lot of neat speakers there and got to meet a lot of cool people. But yeah, the speaking engagements are the best. I mean, I really enjoy doing those things. They go by so fast. Like the last one at Zuber's, I didn't prepare for it at all. I just went up to share my ideas as far as the theory goes, and got up there, and 1 hour went by so fast. It was just like it went by so fast. Um, all right. Nitrin? Thank you for the $10. Seems to me being uneducated provides the best perspective on the matter. So many institutional guys rely on all sorts of modeling to only baffled by some threatening words, fundamentals. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And and I think that's really like kind of the issue that most people end up finding with economics is that although they are incredibly intelligent when it comes to their understanding of finance and economics, it generally comes from like this base, right? So you start with like this base understanding of economics and then you kind of build from there. So it all comes down to this sort of base that you have. I don't have a base. Like some people start with like a base, like Keynesian economic base, Austrian economic base, it's just like some other like sort of base, and then they built it off of there. I never had that. I never had like a base to anything. It was just like, I would look at this and it was just like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that over there? Like, I just looked at all these different things and never really thought one way or the other was the right way or the wrong way. I personally am more of a free market, constitutional, gold standard kind of like, personal feelings for myself. But I also recognize that we're not in a position here in this world to try and create an environment in which that would exist. Like me personally, that's what I would like for myself, right? But I also know that it ain't going to work out for everybody else out there, and so I don't anticipate it being that way. So instead, I just kind of look at it for what it is, right? And when you look at it for what it is, then you don't have any kind of expectations for them to have to do it this way or that way, or they're doing it right or wrong. It's just an is. And you just give it the meaning that I have to do the best that I can with the information that I get from it. So I agree with you. Being uneducated is probably the best way to really understand economics, because most people end up starting with this base, and with that base, it goes from there, and they really can't deviate from it because they've never been exposed any other way to it. Right? So they're smart this way, and that's it. And me, I'm like, scattered all over the place. All right. Steven, thank you so much for the $5. You guys keep hitting me up with these super chats. You're going to keep me out here. It's like we're already after the 2-hour mark. Okay. I keep with the channel hoping that the information will click and I will have a better understanding of our financial system. Thanks. Well, thank you, Stephen. If you do keep sticking with the channel, you will get it. Becoming a member of the channel, like it's only $1 a month, and you with $1 you can go and check out all those member-only videos that we have done breaking down these speeches. They are incredibly helpful, but stick around. Just keep coming back to the channel. I keep breaking these things down over and over again. I understand, like, to me, it feels like I'm regurgitating the same thing over and over again. And a lot of people kind of mention that and say it that way, but really, when you think about it, the information has to be delivered, incorporated to what is happening today. So it has to be constantly gone over and over again, so that you can see how it's being deployed, how it's working with the information, with the news that you're getting. So it's just the way it is. Like, if you one day I'll figure this out in a way that I can like put this into a book or put this into a course. But right now, the only way that I have figured out the best way to do it is to put it in those member-only live streams. So it's going to take a little time. They're a few hours, they're hours long. So you have to go through all of them, internalize that information, download the speeches yourself, right? Because I'll leave links in the description of each one of those videos to the speeches. Internalize those speeches, highlight those speeches. Like, there's particular key paragraphs in there that you want to come back to. Like I literally I take my PDF files and I don't know if you can see it, but I'll highlight them like that. And I have a bunch of them that I do that with. Oh, you guys, you're so awesome. And Joshua, thank you for the $4.99. How do you say stuff on public stage other big speakers may contradict? How do I say, okay. Okay, that's actually a pretty good one, and I think this really has to come down to not caring what other people really think about you. I think that's really what it comes down to. I care what some particular people think about me, but for the most part, I don't care what people think about me. I don't like if, somebody, I mean, no, that's not true. Some people might say something about me and it triggers me and I get upset about it. So I do care what people think about me. But for the most part, not really. Like, not when it comes to this theory, not when it comes to my understanding of monetary policy. I will straight up talk right against what somebody else is saying or believing if it's truly what I believe. I will not deviate from my beliefs, like straight up. So if it contradicts their beliefs, it's just, that's the way it's going to be. I don't have to agree with them to say, hey, they're my friends and I respect their opinions and I respect their understandings of economics. I certainly respect all their understanding of investments. They've done it. They figured it out. They have the money, right? And so when it comes to these type of understandings, I hold a lot of respect for everybody out there. When it comes to me and the delivery of the information that I have, and even though it contradicts a lot of what other people are saying out there, I have those people coming up and shaking my hand saying, hey, great work. Good job with that information. Good job with the delivery. I loved your presentation. This is what they tell me. So when you hear it directly from them, yeah, my confidence, I have all the confidence in the world to deploy this information. I can be out there. I can talk this stuff. In fact, I feel so confident about it. I will debate anybody, anywhere, anytime when it comes to monetary policy. I do not care who they are. Like, I straight up do not care. Like, you can put Peter Schiff, Lynette Zhang, Daniel DiMartino Booth, Lynn Alden. I don't care. If it comes to monetary policy, I will debate anybody. Put a good moderator between us and let's debate it out. Okay? Because I know my theories, my understanding of monetary policy is second to none. Second to none. Nobody has it dialed in like I have. Nobody. And I don't want to sound arrogant or cocky or a prick or anything like that. Like, that's not what my intentions are. It's just that I see it clearly here, and I have been so adamant and so sure of it, and now I can see it. Like, I've been calling it out here in the economy so well. So yeah, I mean, it's not for me, it's not hard. To me, this is very easy to do. It's very easy. In fact, it would be hard for me to do anything outside of deliver this information, because this is what I truly believe. And if you were to ask me to deliver something else, I wouldn't believe it, and you would recognize it, and you wouldn't trust it, and you wouldn't follow the channel. The reason why you're following the channel is because this information is real. You know that the way that I am delivering it and talking about it, with the tonality and the way that I am speaking, that I truly believe this. And that's the reason why you're here. Even if you don't believe the information, you know that I believe it, right? And so you're like, okay, well, this guy believes it. Maybe I'll just see if he has anything to say here. You don't have to believe it, but you can tell that I believe it, because I do. There's just no other way. And those guys are my friends. They're the coolest people in the world. You wouldn't believe it, but the Rebel Capitalist crew are the coolest people in the entire world. Like Jason Hartman, I have never seen that guy nothing but a good, positive, smiling mood. George Gammon is so consistent. Like, that guy is like cool as a cucumber, the Iceman, the entire time. Like, I have never seen that guy get rattled by anything out there. Mark Moss is probably one of the coolest surfer type of Southern California dudes. Like, he has the best presentations up there. The guys are awesome. Everybody at the Rebel Capitalist, they're all this really super, super awesome dudes, Remember the last time I was there, Ken McElroy came up and like patted me on the back and shook my hand. Like, he walked up to me as I was sitting there. It was like, hey man, it's great to see you, Simon. It was like, cool, kid. It's great to see you too, man. What an awesome thing, to have all these great, awesome dudes coming up and smiling and shaking my hand and, including me into their conversations and everything. Man, can you tell I'm getting excited? Like, I'm really getting hopeful that I'm going to make it to the Rebel Capital this year, right? I mean, I see the super chats loading up. You guys are here watching the videos, spreading the videos around. We're making this happen. All right. Robert Von Darth, right on, join the channel. It's great to see. Are we getting close to the end here? We're 2 hours and 11 minutes into this. All right. You only don't need a credit score if you have an empire like Ramsey. Yeah. I got a pretty good credit score. Mine's like, I don't know, 820 or something like that. All right, hide or pour into me. I need real estate. All right, through credible threads. Okay. Trash can. We'll send it with Trash Can Man's comment here. I just think about what I did when they lowered interest rates to the lower bounds. I jumped in. I imagine most homeowners did. Yeah. One rental at a time, link coming. Yeah, well, I'll hang out until you get the one rental at a time link in there. Because that crew is awesome. Like, Zuber and Matthew, the lumberjack landlord, and Dion and Millennial Mike. I mean, they're a really good group. And I would have to honestly say, like, the Rebel Capitalist is a really kind of higher level event when it comes to like the speakers and the things that they're talking about. Much more broad, like as far as covering a lot of different things that are happening out there. Zuber's is a networking machine. Like, that is probably one of the best places that you could go to for networking. It's very family oriented feeling while it's there, like friends and family kind of feeling. Super awesome event. Not nearly as big, it's only a few hundred people that go to it, but it's definitely quality. Definitely quality. And so All Nighter put the link down there to One Rental at a Time to the YouTube channel, Zuber's YouTube channel. Be sure and hit that link and go and check it out and show Zuber some love. He's got great information, great interviews, high-level interviews that he puts on his channel. All right. Okay, you guys are awesome, but I am tired, and it's kind of cold out here, and I think we covered everything that we're going to cover on this. All right. You'll love the daily financial news. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he puts a lot of work into his channel. I would have to say Zuber is one of the harder working people out there on the internet. He puts a lot of content out there. I mean, I thought I do a lot of content. He puts out a lot of content with other people, so he's, collaborating with a lot of other people, coordinating that, making it entertaining, doing the, getting the post out there. That's a lot of work that goes into it, and so you can tell he really enjoys doing it too. Okay, Uneducated Economist, you guys are awesome. You let me know.